Welcome to episode 5 of EdTech Talks, Learning Beyond Lectures, where we explore pivotal topics that go beyond classroom walls and into real-world challenges. I'm your host, Cathal McFarland, and in today's episode, we are diving into a topic that's both important and often overlooked: diversity and inclusion in the tech industry and education. To help us unpack this, I'm joined by the wonderful Karena Flynn, who is an expert in education and tech advocacy. Karena, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, it's lovely. Thanks for inviting me today.
Perfect. For those listening, I want you to picture navigating an environment where your voice is rare and often unheard. Today, Karena's journey will shine a light on the barriers and breakthroughs in making tech a more inclusive space. We'll discuss her work with the DCU Access Programme, her leadership in promoting diversity, and how her experience can inspire us all. Karena, for those who might not know your story, could you share a bit about your path from being one of the first DCU Access students to the impactful roles you've held and now hold in tech and education?
So, thanks again for having me here today. I'm delighted and honoured to chat about my experience in the tech industry. So why was I called here in the first place? So tech is where I came from, where I started. So I'll probably start from there. I worked in an e-commerce company for 15 years. It was called Empathy Marketing. And it's not really your demographic nor anybody in the course. It was a company most famous for pigsback.com, which was its most famous site. And we did the dining room, pamper.ie, secret escapes, lots and lots of online e-commerce companies. I was a business unit director there in pigsback.com, so I headed up the product, but it wasn't always what it ended up as, which was kind of like a Groupon site. At the beginning, it was a marketing site, so it was one of the first. It was one of the first empathetic marketing sites. So you would sign up yourself to get these emails from these brands, not like social media now where it bombards you with things. You decided, I would like to hear from Jacobs. I'd like to hear from the cleaning companies. I want a coupon for that cleaning company. I want to hear about the chocolate offer that's coming on and things like that. So it was mainly aimed towards women of a certain age, 30. It was students at the beginning because it was really good offers, like 2 for 1 at TGI Fridays, which I'd say everybody here would love. Free phone credit, all this kind of stuff. And because it was an e-commerce company, it changed with the times. So we just changed with the market. We still our membership grew with us. It was females mainly, 70%. And they grew up with us and had children with us, and the demographic moved from, say, 25 up to 35, 45. But yeah, so that's kind of a feel of what the company was, and where I fit into it was I started, I did multimedia in DCU.
Yeah.
So alumni here. I wouldn't be possible without the Access Programme and lots of supports, which I'll go into in a minute. But what was I saying? In terms of how I got here, this is the thing. So that's what I was doing. Pigsback went from an advertising company into kind of a deals company where they sold vouchers for hotels or products. So you'd get 50% off the product and you'd buy the voucher for a limited time. The company recently got sold to Secret Escapes, and now it's been run from London. So I'm actually working in DCU in the executive education sector. So. Which is really good because I actually have so much voluntary work I do at DCU as it is. I'm constantly here. So I help with the Access Programme. I am on the steering committee of the Emerging Leaders Programme. I'm on the WIN programme, which is Women's Impact Network Programme as well. It's a DCU alumni and women and alumni trying to change women leadership. And also I am an ambassador for the Challenger Programme, which is a link to the Access Programme. So the Challenger Programme is more aimed towards younger kind of children, in disadvantaged areas. So I'm on the board of directors of Sphere 17 as well, which is a North Dublin youth centre. There's 4 of them in North Dublin. I'm a director there, and I'm advocate for children from disadvantaged backgrounds to get into third level education. That's a lot of background. So.
Yeah, that's brilliant. No, it's brilliant to have you on as well, just because of your extensive experience. Just going back again to the DCU Access Programme, why do you think inclusive education has been so central to your mission?
Yeah, so I've seen it firsthand how hard it is like when you get to university and you see the people around you, so you'll have 80% around you that didn't have the same kind of upbringing than you. And I'm really grateful for the Challenger programme, the Access programme, for showing me the way to get to third level. In my primary school, 1% of my class went on to third level, and that was a statistic for years and was told to me by the Challenger programme that only 1% of the people in my primary school go on to third level. Now it's only, and that's 30 years later, that is only grown to 10%, which is, I think is disgusting. Actually, I think it should be way more because of all of the access to technology and maybe information that we have, but that's not the case. So when I was younger, like everybody around me says, oh, you can't go to college because it's really expensive. Even my mother and father thought that. Nobody in my family went to third level education, so nobody could tell me any different. So and I did explain this before at a Challenger event where I always thought it was expensive from TV, where the Americans always said it was expensive. So I just naturally thought that it was expensive. Then we, as Challenger students, we were kind of like the tops of our class. And we went into this special program where they showed us, and our parents went into the program and got educated on the grants that can be got, the other access ways you can get into education. It's not just go to get your points and you have to pay loads of money and you go in. There's all these routes. So I got brought here as a child to DCU and all UCD, Trinity, loads of different colleges, and shown that actually you can come here, you just need to get grants, my mother got told about this. My father was like, I didn't know this existed. Then because my mother found out about this, she went back to education. She never did her junior or leaving at all. So she went back and did a third level degree, and both of us were doing our leaving together. And then she went on to do college and she went to be a lab technician. But it's very important for me to advocate for this because I still hear to this day people talk about, I can't go to Trinity because it's very expensive from my area. I said, who has told you that? I should be telling you this. Why have you not learned from me yet? What's happening here? And it's the lack of education and people around you. And if you can't see it, you can't be it. It's a lot of things. And even my own niece would say stuff like, oh, I can't go into digital marketing. I said, just you'd be great at digital marketing. You have these YouTube channels, you have TikToks, you have hundreds of followers. And I said, you should go into digital marketing. She's like, I don't know anything about digital. I said, marketing is like, you're just doing it. That's what it is. And she's like, oh, I thought you meant coding. I thought digital meant coding. So this would be a case in your class as well in the digital business and innovation. There seems to have been a lot of men that came in at the very beginning. Excuse me, a lot of men that came in, and that was the perception. Say females think that it's coding and then get scared. And I don't know why. I don't know what happened there. I don't know why that is. And there might be misconceptions in schools or something like that. But I'm going off on a tangent here. But in terms of me being an advocate for education, I seen firsthand in my own family, when my mother went back to college, how the finances changed in the house and we weren't on, like, say, minimum wage. It's a lot more comfortable. Same with myself when I went into education. I went out of education. I invested in myself, got a good job, and went on and, have a comfortable upbringing.
Well.
A comfortable upbringing now, and I don't have to, because there's generational poverty in these areas. So they just do what their parents have done, and people don't get out of the race. I just wanted to give you another example of how I think people from affluent areas just go, you should just work harder. You're just slacking, or, you're all in the dole. You shouldn't be doing this. It's not that simple, and it's very important to get that across. Like, say I have lots of friends who are so clever. I have a lot of cousins that are still very clever, but they just got stuck. So their parents would work in like really stressful, underpaid jobs, and they'd have maybe 4 or 5 brothers and sisters. So just picture yourself. If you had to get an assignment done this weekend, but your mother has to work from 5 o'clock to 11 o'clock because she needs the extra money because her father only has minimum wage, and you can't be clothing 5 or 6 children with that, the cost of living. You can't get them into extracurricular. You can't do any of that. So you need to earn extra money. So you have to mind your brothers and sisters at night time. You can't really get your assignment done. Then you come into college and say, sorry, I couldn't get that done. Then your more affluent people in the group are like, geez, you're just a slacker. Why aren't you not coming in? Why aren't you not doing this? Why aren't you not going to lectures? You're like, I had to help my mother out. I had to do this. Or you had to pick up extra shifts at your work because there's not enough money in the house. Like these are things that you're like, oh, you're not doing enough. It's your family circumstances that sometimes put a hold on this. And also I know people who had to, during the COVID-19, they got offered jobs and they had to turn it down because they didn't actually have a room in the house that they could do these Zoom calls in. They had children in the house. It was really, and they just go, I have nowhere to do this work. I would totally love it. I get paid, but I have nowhere to sit anywhere to do this work. So there's lots of things that people don't really think about. They just think, no, just get it done. Just work harder. It's never that easy. It really isn't.
It really is more complex.
It's way more complex than you think. And no one ever talks about it or sits down and talks to people. Can I help you in any way? That doesn't happen. And that's where I'm thinking people need to be a lot more compassionate, even in hiring or in interviews. Just talk about situations. And in college, when people are struggling, really get down to the nitty gritty. Why and how can we help? That's
for those listeners who might be in that situation as well, some of those programs like the DCO Access, they can be fantastic as well. Just for you guys too. Just reflecting on your career at Pig's Back, Karena, what were some of the challenges you faced in maybe a more male-dominated environment? Just what kind of challenges?
So when I was there at the very beginning, it was more of a marketing type and there was a lot more females. And then as soon as I started getting into hard selling, very quick technology changes, it got more male dominated. And also it got more intense as recession hit. So we had to work a lot later. Lots, and I had to do maybe 4 people's work at one time. So if I was a woman with children, which at the very beginning I wasn't, I just got engaged. But as a woman with children, you can't stay up to pace with that kind of environment. So I can see why a lot of women wouldn't, stay in tech. It's very different than normal environments. There's a bro culture as well. So I maybe this new generation have a bit more of an open kind of
an open mind.
A bit more of an open mind. But from my day, there's a lot of inappropriateness, and you kind of just have to be like them. You just have to, and then you get used to it, and you get kind of a bit of a Stockholm syndrome, and you go outside of that environment, and you see people don't talk like that or be like that, or there's not that much bro culture in other places, and you only realise that when you do stuff outside or go into another job or go anywhere else, and you go, oh, wow, or talk about it to someone else. I did talk about something that was bothering me with somebody else from a completely different company, and they said, that's completely inappropriate, Korean. That shouldn't be allowed. You have a HR department. And I'm like, the HR department is full of bro culture. But anyway, I thought this was all okay. I thought that, like innuendos or harassment or anything like that was perfectly normal, but it actually isn't. And I because I've been in it so long, I didn't think of it that way. But also, if you're in that kind of culture, they don't understand. You kind of have to work harder, because when I did have children, there's a lot of very quick changes in those kind of environments and tech environments. Like I even had a colleague who, his wife had a child, and he had to stop his kind of paternity to just do this program that had a strict deadline, bought over a company, needed to be done ASAP. Just had to, like, imagine if you're on maternity leave, like as a woman, you couldn't go, oh, I'm stopping, I'm just not having the baby, like we have to get this project done, So it's a lot of things where you really have to be agile. Your family, it kind of has to mould around your job, like in those high tech environments. Now, I'm not saying absolutely every environment. Think about though, SMEs in Ireland is like, what's it, 56%, 52 to 56% of small companies, like of the companies in Ireland are small companies. Then the rest are big corporates and tech. They're the ones who follow the structure and the HR policy, to the T, and they're quite good at that. But then the rest of us are working in small to medium companies. They don't really have HR departments. They have minimum resource. They do what they can. And that's where you have to jump in and help out and get these things. Because if you don't get the project done, you don't get the sale and nobody gets paid. So like you're really under pressure in these places. So in terms of the tech environment, I would give some advice for the future generation actually, which would be, if you are hiring, please be mindful and hire a bit more diverse. Try not hire your friends. Try not hire somebody exactly like you. Because then what we had to do is we kind of had to hire people that would get on with the lads, because we did look at some lovely women, but they're too meek and too small. And I'm like, they're going to hate this here. They're going to hate this place because they're just going to be eaten alive. So sometimes that just is, it's a terrible thing to say, but sometimes that's the way it is, and that's the culture. So we need to get a bit more diverse, inject a bit more minority or females in there to shake things up.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. In terms of women in the workplace then, like women do face unique challenges such as navigating career growth alongside personal aspects such as pregnancy, which you've kind of touched on already. In your opinion, how can companies better support women acknowledging these realities?
Yeah, so like I said before, it's during the hiring process really. You can see that they have the skills and bring them on. But you'd have to be with the hiring managers or with the people who are working with them. You have to realise that they will have families, or they might not. But also don't put the responsibilities on all of them. I do have women who are in tech who, as women, usually you get the organisational skills landed on you, or you take all the notes, or you do that because you're very good at it, and then the guys can go off and do the stuff. So you're getting landed with extra responsibilities as the female. I have a lot of females who have to stay really late at night because they're doing this extra work, and the note taking, or they're writing the stuff down, or organising these other things outside of their work, yet their male counterparts are just going away doing the coding and getting the work done. But the females are like, you're organised, so you get this done. But they're not getting paid any extra. And then they're there later, and they really think they have to prove more that they're good enough to work there because they're females. And then, like myself, sometimes as I had children at home, I sometimes wouldn't get projects or anything. And that was fine. They were like, oh, well, you have small children, maybe you shouldn't be doing this. But then you see, if you're not getting the better projects, you're not getting seen more by the higher ups, and you're kind of just melting into the background. I even had some colleagues that I worked with, or subordinates, who were, they did their work so fantastically well, but didn't shout about it and say, I did this project, I did this thing. And because they didn't shout about it enough, the higher ups didn't see it and just went, well, they're just getting on with the work like everybody is, but I don't see them, standing up to do more or taking on this and that. And, so try and get everybody's voices even at like round table meetings. Don't just call upon the people who have a smaller voice and say, what do you think? What's your opinion? Don't be just letting the male voices or more dominant voices shout all the time. That's always talking in the room. Try and get other opinions and call them out. Like if you were going to be a leader in the future, please try and talk to everybody and get everybody's opinion, because they have fantastic ideas. Sometimes I talk to them in one-on-ones and I'm like, why did you not say that in the meeting? Oh, I'm too scared because so-and-so is shouting and this person is talking. And, so...
I find that a lot too. The quietest person in the meeting usually has a lot to say.
Amazing.
Because they're such good listeners too. The people that are very quiet. So it can be very interesting to get their perspective on things too.
I fully agree. Yeah. And the listeners seem to have absorbed a lot more and then know how everything works around the place, and they have calculated and they've got great ideas. Yeah, I 100% agree. So if or when you're a leader someday, definitely try and get everybody's opinion at the table, because you'll learn so much more than shouting at everybody or barking orders. Yeah. It's always about listening and feedback. Yeah, definitely.
Perfect. And then in terms of actually from the female perspective again, maybe not from the hiring perspective, for actual women and girls going into the workforce. So this could be even your daughter in a couple of years' time. Like, what advice would you have to people, listening to your story, who maybe want to look for success similar to what you've had, and kind of emulate it too? What kind of advice would you have to those women and girls listening?
My own daughters, I have two daughters, Cassandra is 10 and Charlotte is 7. And they're actually doing a lot of STEM in school, which I'm delighted about. My daughters really love it. So that's one thing that I'm finding I'm really happy about. And she also has a YouTube channel that's more digital marketing tech stuff. So I'd have advice now, and this is what I did. If you can't see it within your environment or anywhere around you, please try and go out there and look for it. That's what I had to do. So I joined women's network groups. I joined groups that were women in tech or e-commerce. Now, there's not many at the moment. There's not many. And I'd go there and I just asked the questions. I would even ask before I had children, because I knew I would be having children someday. How do you navigate this? What is your advice to me? And because I didn't have that in my family, nor I knew nobody really that worked full time. Even like they had their children and they either stopped or went on to 2 days or something like that. I was even encouraged when I did go out working full time with my children. Why aren't you not doing 2 days? Why haven't you given up work? By the people in my disadvantaged area background, not in the new affluent areas I'm living in. But and I didn't understand why they wanted me to pull back so much. And when you're around that a lot, and people think you're failing as a mother, that's really discouraging. So I would go to people who are similar to me, so I'd go find them. So that's what I'd say to the young girls. This is what I did, and I'd go and find my tribe, is what they call it. Yep. So I was like, oh, you want to be? Yes, I want to be in tech. I want to do this. I want to build an app. I want to do this. And it's lovely to surround yourself by all these yes people, and don't listen to the naysayers or people that keep telling you not to do this and that. So please go out and find these people. That's the hardest thing to do. But once you find them, you'll be delighted and you'll get so much good advice. Definitely, yeah.
Brilliant. And I think even DCU is very diverse as well. So even organizations and colleges, like people will help you as well if you ask the right questions and even consider it. Like there's open days you can go to so many different things. And I think it's very interesting that like once you see how that other half is really living, and then that can inspire you to actually look for that change as well.
They have the mentorship program, which is fantastic. I really encourage anybody to, I encourage anybody who comes to DCU to definitely do the mentorship program or go for any of the intra or internships or anything that's on offer. Just go for it, because you won't get this opportunity again. Really, when you get out of college, you have DCU to come back as an alumni, but you have so much resources here. You just jump at every opportunity, because when you go out to the world of work and you see that they've done this mentorship or you've done small little internships or shadows, that's all going to add up at the end of the day for you to progress in your career. 100%.
Absolutely. And then again, from more of the male perspective, like as a young man myself, what advice would you give to myself or even the male listeners who maybe are just finishing college, going into the workplace, to make women feel more comfortable? And what advice
in the workforce? So I'm going to talk to you yourself, just in terms of in the future, when you go into the workforce and they're going to try and do stuff like diversity and equity or women in the workforce, don't say that's nothing to do with me, because I'm not a woman and nobody in my family is diverse. Or never say that that's nothing to do with you, because it always is. You have to be an ally in the workplace. If you see that the females aren't getting enough recognition, or minorities aren't being represented enough in, you say, well, this tech or these apps or this thing that we're working on or programming, it's quite biased because we're all quite similar. We need a lot more diversity in here to get this program, app, tech, website, whatever it is. We need a lot more input to get this right. If it's all of us just the same and the same thinking, it's only going to serve one part of our community. It's not going to serve the whole community. We need a lot more diversity in here. So as a male, be an ally to these other underrepresented and with less of a voice. So that's what I say to any young males coming into the workforce. Please be an ally to us and to minority communities, definitely. Yeah.
That's really important. Thank you. And then again, kind of you talked about websites and tech as well. Over the course of this, so technology has been like a real game changer in terms of democratizing education and even opportunities. With AI, social media advancements lowering the barriers to entry. I know you kind of talked about the other side where during COVID, people might not have access to those technologies. But do you believe this trend in terms of the generalization of AI, social media, and even the internet even, do you believe this trend will help level the playing field for minorities currently and in the future?
Well, I think society is what needs, technology will certainly help, but society has to change first for technology to win over. But it certainly will give a much needed helping hand. I can see that the translation tool, say, is something fantastic for, say, parents of immigrant generation helping their children in school. That, these kind of things are things that people never had before, or these healthcare apps, or stuff like this, that access to healthcare that's much more affordable, or instead of you trying to find a doctor, you couldn't find a doctor. Like, these kind of things are brilliant for underserved communities. Even trying to find a group, or like is in Sphere 17, where sometimes people can't come to the program days, or any kind of days that are specifically about talks, or what do you want to see in your community, what kind of courses do you want on. They can do these things online, because some people do have to be at home, like I say, minding their brothers and sisters or things like that. So they can be active within the community, but online if they can't be there. So I think that these kind of technologies are really good. The Instagrams and the Facebook, they can also not be good, but they can help with underserved communities and getting the information.
If used correctly.
Yes, if used correctly, and getting information out there as well. Like I said, I didn't have the internet, so I didn't know about these things, about fees and things. But what if they looked up and searched for themselves, find all these programs themselves? I have cousins who went and found loads of other grants they could get, fantastic kind of way. And, that's great for information building, because in the past, in my day, there was no access to that. So hopefully this will increase the percentage I'm trying to get from 10% to hopefully even 50%, by the time I'm off this earth. If it's more than that, it'd be great, because the partners down the road, the schools down the road would be 60 or 7% of the primary schools would go on to third level education. So if technology can help with that, that would be fantastic. Yeah.
Wrap up, Karena. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the future. And in the field is progressively embracing diversity. What is your vision for an ideal inclusive work culture and workplaces in the future?
So with inclusivity in the workplace and in tech, I really hope that we move towards a closing the gender pay gap. Hopefully, as we move into the future, and especially in tech, the young women, like I said, my daughters are doing STEM, can actually get invited to the tech field to play as they get older. And if they're doing this with males in the classroom, they can see both of them are as good. It's I did sign my daughter up for a robotics class in the library because she asked me to. And I went there, and there was 12 boys and 2 girls, and the 2 girls were standing at the side while the boys were fighting fiercely for their robots to win. And Cassandra and the other girl was there going, how can we collaborate together? How can we make this better? How can we make the robot do this and this and this and not fight each other? So we can see that if in the classroom they can see that it's nothing to do. We all our skills will come in handy in the workplace. Hopefully that will create a more inclusive environment. Also, another thing is that they didn't have before, the teachers are now getting offered internships in STEM companies, so in Google or IBM. So the teachers before would just come from the teaching colleges straight out to teach. So now they go in and they do internships in these tech companies, and they know what's expected of an employee in these companies. So they go into the classroom and teach the children equally all about, well, this is, we don't have to do this. If you're going into tech, you're going to have to learn X, Y, Z. So I think this is going to help a lot with the future of, inequality, of equality in terms of female, minorities, just backgrounds, all of this. I think this will really, really help. Definitely.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then, Karena, thanks so much for your insights. They've been really valuable, and hopefully our listeners have found some value as well. If you did enjoy the podcast, please consider subscribing to our Spotify and YouTube to hear more from our digital business and innovation class. Thank you so much again, Karena, and thanks again for listening, guys.